Hello everyone. In today's lab I'm going to cover a little cloth gravity collision simulation. It's a fun little lab. I think you're going to really enjoy it. It's one of my personal favorites. I think it's really fun. I think you don't have to put in a ton of work to get great results, which is nice. You kind of let the computer do it for you, which is awesome. So I want to go ahead and just kind of dive right in and start getting into it. It's not a difficult lab, but there's so many different things that you can do with it that can make it really unique. You could use it for we're going to do a tablecloth just for simplicity, but you could do a flag. You could utilize these different things like a flag, a cape, clothing, things like that. That simulate anything that you can think of that has that cloth fabric that would react to different scenarios of settings that we can plug in to Maya. So, all right, let's get started. So one of the first things I'd like to talk about is let's get into polymodeling. The polymodeling tab. I'll go into the modeling tab for now, but we will switch to the FX tab here in the top left corner here soon. And what we're going to do is we're going to start by creating our cloth. Now, we don't have to have a ton of depth to it. This is a pretty simple little lab. So I want to do a polyplane, not a cube. So I'm going to start right here. I'm going to just go ahead and make this thing pretty big. I'm going to scale it to 25, 25, and 25. I'm also going to translate Y to 10. Now, the reason I'm doing that is because we're going to set this by default until we get a little bit further into it. We're going to have this drop onto a cloth or onto our tabletop in this example. Now, the way that collisions and gravity and the cloth simulator work, we're going to use all three of those. It's based off of vertices. So the vertices is what will be colliding with one another. So the more vertices you have, or that's how it's going to calculate the collision, the more vertices you have, the longer it's going to take your computer to process. So if you have I would say 10 by 10 on your polyplane is probably a little too light. I'd say 25 by 25 would probably be sort of, you could always try 10 by 10. I just don't think you're going to get great results. 25 by 25 will work pretty well. The more you have, the more realistic it will look. I'm going to go 50 by 50. I feel like that's a pretty good number. And it gives us enough information, and it is quite a bit topology. So if you have if you've had a slower machine or just it's just not running as smoothly, just bring down that topology to a lower number. So I'm going to just show you with 50 by 50. I can even show you with a couple examples here what it would look like. Let's do this one's 50 by 50. This one is going to be this one will be 25 by 25, so this is double. And then let's create one more. You don't have to do this, you only need to have one. I just want to show you what the differences are between the three. And I want to keep the scale the same on each one. And this one will remain at 10 by 10. All right, so 10 by 10, call this 50x50 mesh, cloth mesh. I won't let you start with a number, okay. So x50, this one is going to be 25, and this one will be Okay, so 10, 25, and 50 on our poly count. So I just want to go ahead and have those ready for you so you can see what they, how they react in real time. So, and then what the difference in the poly count will look. So we have like a low, medium, and high. So now that I've done that, I want to go ahead and show you. I'm going to start with this one first. I'm going to go ahead and do switch to my FX tab here in the top left corner. So you're going to click from that little modeling is what we've been primarily using the entire semester. And we're going to scroll down and go to FX. Now with this FX tab on, I am going to create a little table. So okay. And now I could do this a couple different ways. The fastest, easiest way to model this would be to create a separate one. Bring it up. But what I'm going to do, just for ease, for doing 3 examples, I'm going to go ahead and make this one mesh. So I just selected the faces, I extruded them inward. I press G for last tool used, which means it's going to extrude again straight down. In fact, I want it to be thinner. And I'm going to leave this other one here for now. I'm not too concerned about it. Bring that down. I'm going to hold X so it snaps right to the grid. I'm actually going to bring it up a little bit more. I'm going to extrude one more time. And I'm going to extrude one more time, holding X. I'm going to snap that down to my grid. And now I've got this object. Now, 2 things. Now that I have this as one big object, I know my computer will probably be able to handle it pretty well. However, if yours doesn't, I would strongly recommend doing it with just something like this. And I'm just going to move this one over here. I think this is 30. Right. And this will serve the example plenty, because the only thing, this is going to recognize every single vertice on here and be able to, it's going to take longer to calculate. With this one, it's just going to calculate the vertices on the actual table on the top of it. So I want it to be similar in size though. That's pretty close. All right. And then okay, close enough. All right, so now I've got my tables. Oh, I don't know what I just pressed there. And now I've got my simple tables, and then this is my high poly side, okay? Now, the first thing I'm going to do, and this is just so you can see the differences, the first thing I want to do is I want to create this, all of these are going to be in nCloth, but I'm going to do one at a time. So I'm going to start with the highest poly one. so you can see what it looks like as it goes down to the lower ones. So the first thing I want to do is in my effects tab, nCloth, and create nCloth. Now you can click this little tab, but it's not going to really do a whole lot. We're not changing any of the settings in there, so you can just hit create nCloth, and you'll see it's in the shape of a little t-shirt. So create nCloth. So now with that said, rename my layer. I just put the table on a separate layer so I could show you here. When I created that nCloth on here, you'll see it has a little N here. This is your nucleus is what they call it. It's named nucleus 1. I may not have to create any other nucleuses, even though it will automatically, but we'll see what happens. And what I'll do, now that this is an nCloth, now my nucleus here, it has all these different settings in here, and basically you can change them all. I'm starting on frame like 59. Let me add a bunch of frames in here. Let's make it 700 at the bottom. Let's bring this out. And I'm just trying to make it so that you guys can actually see where I start on frame 0. Oh. Okay, so my frame 0 is right here. Perfect. That's good for now. I might have to add more frames, but just so you can see, mine will probably take 2 seconds, 3 seconds in terms of time, maybe even a little bit more because my frame is starting at -75 when I hit play, but I'm going to start on 0 for right now. I just want to hit play and show you what this does. Okay, let's bring that back. And it's running into a glitch right here. It's just falling, and then the next frame it just drops. Let's start it on frame -75 because sometimes the frame from where it plays starts at can really play with it. Okay. So I'm having a little bit of glitching going on. I'm not too concerned about it yet. And it may be just because it might be trying to recognize that the table's there, but I haven't told Maya how to recognize this thing yet, right? So I'm going to hit play again, and it looks like it's right where it glitches, where it makes contact with that table, even though it wasn't even in the scene, but that's what it looks like to me. So now I want to go ahead and I want to make this table able to be recognized as a something to collide with, right? Something that it will be able to recognize. So we can do nCloth on the top corner and hit create passive collider. And now I'm going to try it again and see what happens. And now Maya actually has some information in there, and it stops as soon as it gets to about frame 95. For whatever reason, it just doesn't want to go past that. And I think it's starting to recognize that there's actually, I think it's recognizing that it has topology down here, that it's trying to calculate the math on the distance, and it's just pausing it up a little bit. Let's do the same thing here. Oh, I just undid that. I'm going to create an nCloth and create passive collider. And now let's play it again. Okay, so it's playing pretty good. And you'll see, because I have much more geometry on this cloth versus this one, I'm getting a lot more wrinkles in this one. And on this last one, we're just going to see what happens. So you'll notice the last one kind of flaps like a piece of paper would, right? It's not able to wrap all the way through, where these actually have a little bit more to go with. Clearly this one looks like the most realistic based off the cloth, but it's because it has the most topology. Now, if I were to change this all, let's do a new scene. So anyway, for the submission, if you were to submit something like this, maybe you want the table to be a little bit bigger or the cloth to be a little bit smaller. Let's see if I can change that without it really changing too much in terms of, it's going to start playing at 0. And then it just stops at frame 60 or so. I just want to try something really quickly. I haven't set any keyframes or anything. I just want to see what's going on. So the reason, I was trying to let you see where I was starting from, but the reason it was stopping for me is that Maya was just running into a glitch because I was playing my scene from a negative number, just so I could show you in the timeline right here, frame 0. But no big deal. So don't change your negative number down here in the bottom. Keep it the very first frame in the timeline as frame 0 or even 1. And then go ahead and hit play, and you won't run into that little glitch that I was having. And you'll see the differences between low poly, medium poly, and high poly. Now, just for fun, I don't want you to do this, but I want you to just want to show you. So this is going to be even, this we'll call like extreme poly, right? The differences. So what do I have this one at? 20. Okay, so we're going to set this one to negative 30. Yep. And then positive 10. And then I'm just going to duplicate this and move this negative 30. And now I'll create one more just to show you all the differences, and then I'm going to run through all of the different settings on these, just so you could get a, nCloth, and we're going to create a passive collider. Yep. All right. So one last time, and I've got 4 simulations running here. I don't want you to do that. I only want you to run 1 simulation at a time. But just to show you really quickly, and I'm running into, so in the bottom of my screen, you'll see it here shortly. You'll notice that it's all red now. It should play. It should be pre-rendered, theoretically. Let's take all, it's orange, blue and orange. It's just because it's pre-rendering in the background, so that's another thing that might cause you some slower issues, but that's why you only want to do 1 at a time. What I'll do is I'll delete And I'll just keep these two here. I just want to show you the differences and how that topology can really play a big and you can tell the major differences between the two. There's just a lot more information for this to be able to pick up on. And then, so your submission, obviously I don't care if you ran it at 1,000,000 polys. I don't want you to, I don't want you to struggle, put your machine through a struggle if it's not capable of handling this. But just so you know, the more vertices, the more it needs to calculate, and it takes longer. And depending on your machine, it's calculating gravity, all these different things. So let's do. Okay, perfect. I'm gonna grab this nucleus now, and on this nucleus, I can change anything I want. So you'll see gravity direction -1. That's because it's gonna go -1 down. Gravity, goes down, but this is how Maya reads it, right? In that direction. So -1 meaning y-axis, -1 going down. If I did it +1, it's gonna go up. Okay. Could be cool for like a sci-fi scene. They flip the switch and it reverses gravity or something. I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas out there. You also have things like wind speed and then wind direction. So wind direction is on x 1 degree or 1. I don't know if they mean, I think it's just by strength. But let's do like 0.5 on wind direction. And just to show you, I don't know how much that's going to affect it. Let's bring my tables back too. And let's get rid of this one for now. Didn't do a whole lot. Oh, gravity 9.8. So that's the strength of the gravity. Let's do 10 and just see what happens. I have to wait for it to sort of render in the background. It makes it a little bit more difficult for my computer to do as well when I'm screen recording as well. So bear with me. Let's see if a play blast will do it. No, it's not doing it. This might be not a great idea. I'm at 50. Let's do 80. Click save. Well, that freed up quite a bit. And you'll see that the wind is actually pushing it off now. I don't know if you can tell, but to give you an idea, on my nucleus, I changed the wind speed to 10, and it changed the entire thing. Wind noise, I don't know what that's going to do, but we can try to play around with that. But I'm going to run through the rest of these real quick. And you already know what I'm looking for the lab. Time scale 1, space scale 1. Go into my attribute editor. I'm just wondering. Ground plane, air density. So you can increase the air density. Let's bring the wind noise up to 0.5. And let's bring this back and hit play. In just a minute, I'm waiting for that bar at the bottom of the screen. You see it's climbing its way up. So it's rendering it in the background. So the wind's still pushing it off the table. I'm glad you could see that. Let's just go to 0 on wind speed, and then wind noise 0. And I just remember this used to have quite a bit more. If I click on this little circle, if I can get it, nCloth 4, I can change the thickness, the bounce, if I want it to be able to bounce off of it. Collision flag, max iterations, let's see. So that's a good one to touch base on. Max iterations, it's at 10,000. So, and max self-collision iterations is 4. So what the iterations is talking about, this is going to actually be really useful to know, is that the iterations will, is how many times it's going to calculate in the background before it's basically kind of puts a decision on where it's going to go. So the more iterations you have, the more realistic it's going to look. It's also going to take a lot more time depending on the number. So the higher the number, I'm going to keep it as default, but that could be something if you're running into some issues. You could always bring those numbers down a little bit. I would start with this max iterations one and take off a 0 first. All of these different collide is on, self collide is on, so you can turn that on or off, 1 or 0, so it actually knows how to collide with itself. And basically, if you don't have it on, what will happen is that the cloth will actually bleed through its own mesh if it were to fold enough to touch base with it. So with self-collision on, instead of bleeding through, sort of, where it bleeds through and you'll see the cloth go through it for like no apparent reason invisibly, it will actually collide with each other, and then it can bounce off and do all that kind of stuff. But point force field, that might be kind of cool. But you can have a lot of fun with this lab. I'm just on the little circle. The way I selected it was just a click and drag. And then you can change all of these different, there's stretching on it. So the cloth can actually show it stretches. So when it hits the collision point, instead of just kind of folding over, it could fold but also stretch at the same time if it's a stretchy material. And then you can set how much stretch it could or could not have. But there's so many different things in here between the two. And I don't think I really missed anything that I wanted to cover. So that's why, especially in the beginning of this lab when I was showing you, my start frame is at 1. And I was starting at -75 just so I could have the timeline visible in here, but no difference. You can actually change the start frame on it as well. And then if you wanted a ground plane, you could use it as a ground plane, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, another example to do this that I've seen quite often, and the more vertices that are on the, I'm going to create a really generic bed. like 2 cubes generic, like Minecraft generic. Move that off to the side, and let's make it a little bit wider. So I've seen this done pretty often, and in which case now I'm going to have 2 collisions. Or 2 colliders, whatever you want to call it. So this is going to be my super generic bed. Right, there's my pillow, there's my bed. The more vertices you have on this, the more it's going to be also able to calculate. If this were like a pillow that, let's just do a smooth on it. And let's do a smooth on it again. So the more pillows that are, or the more vertices that are on it, the more it's going to be able to. And I'm going to run to my sculpt tool real quick. I don't think I've shown this to you, so this will be the first time. And this first one is my little lift the surface. If you want, I strongly recommend this little tool settings box. This is going to, holding B just like the soft select. I could have used the soft select for this as well. And then strength 1. Let's see if that makes a difference. Just gonna make this a little weird, like it's been laid on or something. Holding shift while you do this will do the smooth. And smooth out your vertices. What it does is it actually is really, realistically what it's doing is taking an average of all the vertices around it and just sort of smoothing that out. And then this actually needs a little bit more to do this better. And I saw someone ask about the smooth tool in one of the comments, so I figured it might as well just sort of throw it in the mix of one of these labs. You don't have to do this. This isn't part of the lab, but it's an extremely useful tool to know how to use. And I'm not going for anything that's perfect. I'm just, and I think holding Alt will, no, holding Control will cut into it. So if I wanted to, and the more geometry, the better the results. So anyway, here's my little slept on pillow, right? And it looks kind of weird. And then I'm only showing you that because to do this, something like that. Maybe something like that. Anyway, so now I want to go to my poly attribute editor, my poly plane. I'm going to do 100 by 100 again, just for this example. I'm going to create an nCloth, and then I'm going to select the bed, and I'm going to shift select the pillow, and I'm going to do nCloth create passive collider. And now I got to wait for this to sort of reload and re-render. It's going pretty quick. I'm just going to play and see what happens. And now you'll see I've got this blanket on top of the bed. Now it's a little... I might want to add some... because it's literally laying absolutely perfect. It doesn't have too much going for it. So I'm going to try this. I've never really done this before on a example that's already got a cloth provider kind of thing on it. I'm going to just sort of draw on this thing with my and I'm just looking to pull some wrinkles out of this. I'm hoping that'll work. I'm going to hit play. It needs to re-render. I don't know if it'll even work because it's... There it goes. I had to get out of the tool for it to work. So now it's rendering again in the background. You'll see that little bar at the bottom of the screen. And I'm hoping this is going to create, I'm just trying something real quick just to see if it'll work, because I felt like it just being perfectly flat, especially like a blanket covering a bed, it might be a little weird. So that's a little bit better. I feel like that's a little bit more realistic in terms of the blanket. I've created some wrinkles in there kind of thing. One last thing I'll do is, let's bring this size down to like 20. Maybe a little bit bigger, maybe 25 by 25. Because I don't want it to go underneath the bed. I want it to hang on the sides of the bed, right? So this is just a... And, you know, be sure to check the video if you want underneath this. It's labeled Autodesk Maya 2019 nCloth Gravity and Collision Simulation, I think. It's just an older video on an older version of Maya. It literally covers the same thing. I don't think anything's changed in terms of this particular lab, but I wanted to go ahead, and that's a little bit better. And it's fallen off, but if I pause it on like the right frame, now I've got my little, you know, and if I put like a, whatchamacallit, like a texture of a blanket on there, I would, you know, it would look like it. It would really pull some of that cloth look to it. But anyway, that's all I'm looking for. The lab for what I'm looking for is submitted. I've just seen so many students do this before. I figured I'd do another example of it for anyone else who hasn't thought of it. But all I'm looking for the lab, by the way, is this table. This table is literally the only thing I want you to submit. Just take a screenshot of the table where it looks like this. If you're struggling or your computer's struggling, just shoot me a message on Canvas inbox and let me know ASAP. But this lab is super fun. I hope you play around with some of the features in there to just enjoy yourself with it, because it is a lot of fun. I went a little bit further and had too much going on in my scene. But remember, your nucleus has all of the different settings in here: air density, wind direction, gravity direction, gravity strength, blah, 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 blah. And then your little yellow button here, your nCloth button, has all different other settings in here to go through. So if I go to my attributes here, here's where your collisions are, collide strength, the thickness, all of these different things, the bounce, the friction, how does it stay on there, right? You know, like, is it grip tape where it's not going to slide at all, or is it like very smooth, like a glass table where it could just slide right off? Stickiness, that is, you guessed it, how it sticks to the whatever it's colliding to. We're not going to worry about collide strength maps at all. None of this is we're going to cover. Dynamic properties, stretch resistance, compression resistance, bend resistance, all of these different things. So if it's, you know, trying to think of a good example, a puffy jacket might bend a little bit different than a, you know, a soft hoodie or a long sleeve shirt, right? And I'm only referencing cloth in terms of clothing because the label is literally a t-shirt. But you can do flags, you can do capes, you can do anything that you can possibly think of. Curtains over your window, whatever it might be, blanket on a bed, tablecloth on a table, anything that you can think of that has that cloth modeling is a great little thing to be able to throw into your little toolbox, is what I like to call it. So let's just say, for example, on the midterm or your final, you have a flagpole that has a flag on it. Now you can have the ability to create a quick and easy flag by adding a texture of whatever you want on that flag. Like if you're doing a pirate scene, you got a skull and crossbones maybe on the flag, something like that. Force field generation, wind field generation, pressure, all of these different things. I couldn't even tell you what they all do because there's so many of them, but the more you play around with them, the more you're going to be able to see what it does. But for the most part, they literally tell you what it is. Stretch resistance, right up here under dynamic properties, compression, bend. It literally tells you. It's just a matter of learning where or what it's actually doing and how much you need to adjust these sliders in order to get the effects and results that you want. How much of a difference is 20 from 21 or 20 to 40, right? In terms of the numbering system down here. But I can't stress enough, I want you to have tons of fun. I hope you enjoy this lab. Again, just submit a screenshot of the table with the tablecloth on it. I just wanted to cover a little extra with you, just to show you some extra things. And in the video I have below, as I was mentioning earlier, it's a little bit shorter, probably by like 3 or 4 times shorter. It's like 10, 15, at best 20 minutes, where this one's running closer to the 45-minute mark. But with that being said, as always, shoot me questions on Canvas inbox. Let me know what you think. And other than that, I hope you enjoyed the lab. I look forward to seeing your submissions. And I will see you on the next video. Thank you so much, and we'll talk soon. All right. Bye.